Good morning. Today is Thursday, February 15th, 2024. There's a famous enigmatic story told in the Talmud about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son, who hid themselves in a cave because they were hiding from the Romans. And they hid themselves in this cave alone, just the two of them, for 12 years. There was a carob tree at the entrance that they had food from. There was a spring of water, so they were able to stay alive, nourished. And the two of them spent the entire time oblivious to the rest of the world, safe, and engaged in Torah study and prayer. That's all they did. They lived this purely spiritual existence for 12 years. Finally, they heard someone outside saying, the Romans are gone. The decree's over. They're not looking for you. And so Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son left a cave. According to one tradition, it's during this time that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, some people know as Rashbi, wrote the Zohar. It's a complicated subject. We've discussed that before, but there is this opinion that it was during these 12 years in the cave that he did that. In any event, they came out of the cave. They came out of the cave after having lived these 12 last years in this purely spiritual existence. And that experience had transformed these two scholars, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son. They were different people. And so when they came out and they saw that people everywhere were engaged in mundane activities, there was a farmer, and there was a shepherd, and there was people going about their daily lives. They didn't understand it. They were outraged. How can people be involved in mundane pursuits and not just be studying Torah and praying all day long? And they couldn't understand it. They were unable to reconcile themselves to the realities of everyday life, of making a living, working, having a job, having a family. And so a heavenly voice commanded that they return to the cave for an additional 12 months. When the 12 months ended, and it was time for them for the second time to leave the cave, when they left the cave, they came across an older man. And the older man, this elderly man, was holding two branches of hadassim, myrtle branches, hadassim, with a very sweet smell. And it was Friday afternoon, just before Shabbos was about to start. And the old man was running. And so Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said to him, "What are the hadassim for?" And the man said, "They are in honor of Shabbos." By the way, to this day, in certain parts of Israel, people will carry hadassim branches on Shabbos. So the rabbi asked him, "But why two branches?" And the man said, "One is for the words in the Torah, Zachor es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho, remember the Shabbos day and keep it holy. And the other is for Shamor es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho, guard, protect, keep the Shabbos day as a day of holiness." When Rabbi Shimon heard that answer, he turned to his son and he said, "See how precious the mitzvos are to the people of Israel." And their minds were put at ease, and they left the cave in peace. Rabbi Avraham Kook, first chief rabbi of Israel, asks, what was it about the old man and the branches of hadassim that reconciled Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son to the mundane activities of everyday life? What was it that created this resolution? So Rav Kook gives a very original answer. We discussed this before, that the Aseret Dibros, the Ten Commandments, appear twice in the Torah. Once in the Parsha of Yisro, which we read a couple of weeks ago, and again in the Parsha of Eschanan in Dvarim, in Deuteronomy, near the end of the Torah. And in those two texts, they are almost identical, but there are a few words that are different. For example, in Yisro, which we read a couple weeks ago, the Torah says, Zachor es Yom HaShabbos l'kadsho, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. But in Veschanan, the text is, Shamor es Yom HaShabbos l'kadsho, guard or observe the Shabbos day to keep it holy. So our rabbis explain that it's not, God forbid, that there are two different versions. It is rather God spoke both words at once, something that is impossible for a human being to do or to even appreciate. And so therefore, one place is written down remember, the other place is written down observe, but actually both words were both said at the same time. We indicate this in our Friday night prayers. When we sing the famous song of Kabbalah Shabbos L'Chadodi, we sing Shamar v'Zachar b'dibur echad. The word Shamar and the word Zachar, they were said as one word by God. They were communicated by one utterance. It's just that we as human beings have to differentiate because our minds don't work like that. We have spoken before about what is indicated about the dual nature of Shabbos, Zachar and Shamar, but Rav Kook gives an original interpretation to this. He says that these two words, Shamar and Zachar, are the two basic aspects of Shabbos. Shamar, he says, means keeping Shabbos. Meaning it refers to the quality of the Shabbos day itself, how we act on Friday night and Saturday, observing the requirement not to do certain kinds of work, elevating it with spirituality, with Torah study, and spending time with our families and our community and prayer. It's a day of intrinsic sanctity. It's a day that transcends all mundane activities. That's all put to the side. And we are elevated to a higher realm of holiness. That's Shabbos, that's Shamar, observing, guarding, protecting the elevation, the spiritual elevation that we have on Shabbos. Zachar, to remember Shabbos, says Rav Kook, refers to the influence of Shabbos on the other days of the week. The mitzvah of Shamar, observing Shabbos, we fulfill that mitzvah on Shabbos by abstaining from certain work, etc., by observing the laws of Shabbos. The mitzvah of Zachar es Yom HaShabbos, to remember the Shabbos day to keep it holy, we fulfill that mitzvah during the week. Our sages explain that all week long we should be thinking to ourselves, what can I do to beautify this coming Shabbos? If I see something nice, I should say to myself, I'm going to save that and use it for Shabbos. All week long, I should be thinking about and acting to prepare that Shabbos will be the highlight. Spiritually, in terms of the foods that we eat, in terms of the enjoyment that we have. All week long, we are working toward Shabbos. That's the mitzvah of Zachar. And therefore, Zachar, to remember Shabbos, represents the power of Shabbos to draw forth energy of the days of the week and to elevate them with a special holiness. Shabbos is not limited to Friday night and Saturday. It must influence the other days of the week as well. Now, yes, of course, the other 6 days are mainly about work, because we are required to work on Shabbos, during the week. We're required to work during the week. We work during the week, and we're involved in mundane activities. Yes, as it should be. And so therefore, the Shabbos during the week is only a zecher. It's a reminder. It's something that is in the back of our minds that we're working towards. But because Shabbos is the goal, therefore our soul is naturally drawn toward holiness. Our soul is naturally drawn toward a quest for a higher purpose in life than just the mundane. It is ingrained within us, so that during the week, while we're involved in mundane activities, we also have an eye looking toward Shabbos, preparing for Shabbos, looking forward to Shabbos. And it's precisely when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai saw that the Jewish people that they encountered when they left the cave, that their Shabbos was not limited to Friday night and Saturday. That on Friday during the day, they were looking forward to it. They were preparing for it. The influence and the spirit, the spirituality, the transcendence of Shabbos was no longer limited just to that day, but it was expressed in the week, in the mundane week. They were able to see, look how Jews hold on to the mitzvahs of Hashem so dearly. That we don't only reserve Shabbos for Friday night and Saturday, but it overflows and influences and elevates to a certain extent even the other 6 days of the week. And they were comforted and they could leave the cave safely. That's the goal of what Shabbos should do for us. It should transform Friday night and Saturday into Shabbos, a day of spiritual uplift. And it should influence the rest of our week to lead to that elevation. To see that elevation as not outside of our regular lives, but the culmination of our regular, routine, mundane lives 6 days of the week, towards which we are always striving, always reaching for holiness. Even within those 6 days, these 6 days, we're still striving towards the holiness of Shabbos. Looking forward to Shabbos, preparing ourselves during the week for Shabbos, not just cooking, but preparing for the spiritual uplifting that Shabbos will bring to us. This is an intrinsic part of our Shabbos observance. This is the mitzvah of Zachor es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho. I am especially preparing for and looking forward to this Shabbos. And I hope that you are too. My friends, I wish you a great day. And when it comes, a wonderful, beautiful Shabbos. And I look forward to seeing you soon in person.